Hello, my name's Andrew Mears. I'm the CEO and founder for SwitchDin. I'm going to be talking to you today about incentivizing asset owner participation in high DER grids. SwitchDin was founded in 2014. We're based in Newcastle in New South Wales on the East Coast. We're 42 people. In that time we coordinate more than 8,500 sites to deliver a range of services, including virtual power plants, the enablement of community batteries, shared assets. We support the inclusion of DER within microgrid control strategies, and similarly for embedded networks. We also support and work with commercial facility managers managing multiple sites to help them in terms of aggregating and orchestrating for better electricity deals. Our solution is an industrial Internet of Things solution. We have an edge device which we call a droplet and a cloud platform we call Storm Cloud. We connect and we connect directly through direct device integration or through cloud API integrations to all the leading brands of solar PV and battery systems in the market, but also electric vehicle chargers and other key assets such as air conditioners and heat pumps. Through Storm Cloud, we enable connection participation in the energy market, and we also provide an integration with the distribution management applications of the networks to enable the automated provision of network services. And I'll talk a bit about the modalities and how we do that later. Storm Cloud also provides some higher level optimization. We use machine learning and forecasting techniques to provide day ahead knowledge of the impact of weather and changes in customer behavior. And we use that to optimize on a site level, but then also taking into account front of meter value propositions. Storm Cloud provides a range of web and mobile apps for operator and also for asset owners, as well as analytics, advanced analytics and data fusion solutions for reporting. Australia has been a great place to develop this solution. Australia has been dealing with the issues of DER within their electricity system for many years. In some cases ahead of perhaps other similar markets in the world. And this has been primarily driven by the uptake of solar. So Australia has the highest per capita penetration of solar in the world. But then on top of that, we essentially have a long, thin distribution network with low population densities. So in relative terms, Australia has been coping with a high level of DER for some time. This has led to policy reform and practice in particular within the distribution networks. And as a consequence, many of the things we're going to talk about today are now business as usual. So most distribution networks are now looking to maximize the use of flexibility within their network operation. And most retailers are now offering virtual power plants and other DER deals for their customers, who are the asset owners. Incentives come in a range of forms. The carrot and stick. Carrots in the Australian context have been a consequence of a long period of piloting and where the cost of assets was high. So to incentivize customers to participate in many of the trials that have happened has often involved an upfront incentive, either on the cost of capital for the customers or in terms of compensation and payments for the interventions made by networks or retailers. So this has certainly been effective and driven that early adopter market. But now we're seeing a move to a more business as usual marketplace as the cost of these assets come down, but also as the cost of electricity starts to increase. So the stick, of course, has been increasing electricity prices, and this has driven customers to start to increase their acceptance, in particular of solar energy, which is widely adopted. The traditional way of managing high penetrations, in particular of solar, was to set static or zero export constraints. And of course, this impacted on the overall business case of those assets and has received and hasn't been warmly received historically. I think politically, this is the opportunity for this type of compliance requirement is starting to diminish. The hurdles, however, to adopt other approaches have been many and varied. Often, a lot of the flexibility requirements or to provide visibility for network operators has been lacking due to the capability of the technologies. There's also been consumer concern around the potential for external control of their assets to disenfranchise them. I guess the big brother concerns have been perhaps go to the core of the social contract between utilities and consumers. And so utilities have been very mindful about how they approach flexibility solutions and have been keen to emphasise the mutual value that comes from solving these problems. To that said, by and large, there has been a lack of clarity around the benefits of participation in flexibility programs, that even though there are there's clearly potential to increase participation for homeowners in particular. Of course, the successful management of DER within the modern grid, high penetrations of DER, it's all about flexibility. But how do we communicate that in a way which is readily internalised by customers? I think the key point is that we move away from static constraints. Static constraints undermine confidence in general, whereas flexible constraints allows a discussion and allows a partnership between consumers and energy service providers. In Australia, the notion of dynamic operating envelopes has thereby taken hold. It's also, I think, a factor of the structure of the Australian market, where we have a disaggregated market with contestable retail space and, of course, networks, monopoly networks. And having a flexible operating envelope allows essentially the decoupling of the value proposition or the opportunity, the benefits of flexibility for delivery of network services and protection of the physical grid without disrupting largely the benefits that can come from energy market participation for the retailer. A key example is Project Symphony. I'll just touch on this lightly because one of the other speakers will be talking in depth about this project. But from the point of view of incentives for end users, the application of dynamic export limits in this program means that there's now the opportunity for the relaxation of static limits on customers. So the Project Symphony, in the context of dynamic operating envelopes, will allow assets to participate in both wholesale and frequency markets, as well as some new network service markets that are emerging. So another key project is the ARENA-funded Flexible Export Project, which is being delivered by South Australian Power Networks and AusNet Services. In this case, in particular in South Australia, the high penetration of solar is leading to the classic duck curve problem. And we're seeing periods where there's high solar output during periods of low demand, and this is leading to network issues. In order to protect the network, the incumbent solution has been to drastically limit the size of solar PV that people can put on their roof. So at the moment, new solar going on without some sort of flexibility solution, without connecting in with the flexible export program, will be limited to 1.5 kilowatts, small. With the flexibility solution, the network is able to coordinate during those critical moments, and so houses can install up to 10 kilowatts. So the scope for improvement of return on investment, best use of their capital is greatly increased. Self-consumption remains unaffected, but more solar is exported, so households earn more feed-in credits. So the overall business case for the system is greatly improved, and at the same time, the hosting capacity of the network is increased. South Australian Power Networks estimates that this flexibility solution alone will increase their hosting capacity by a factor of 3. Another interesting project which is helping to drive down costs, in particular for battery storage, is the community battery model. Now, we're seeing a number of community battery models in Australia. In this project, mid-size battery is installed in the substation. It's owned by the distribution network, and the battery provides network support services. So soaks up excess solar and then provides that to either provide voltage support or to respond to demand peaks. The same battery is then made available through a retailer to trade into the energy market. But then there's a third value stream whereby virtual slices of the battery are provided for downstream customers with solar to enable them to access a virtual battery. Now, this operates for all intensive purposes like a behind-the-meter battery, but of course at a fraction of the cost. And stacking these different value streams greatly improves the business case. So these programs provide a very flexible way of stacking different value streams from these key players in the sector, whilst delivering a much lower cost and convenient battery storage option for customers. So we've taken perhaps a different approach to looking at incentives or incentivization of DER ownership. We see that flexibility unlocks new opportunities for participation of asset owners in both energy markets and in the provision of network services, and thereby reducing grid constraints and increasing revenue for asset owners. Overall, this also has the benefit of enabling broader participation, so higher levels of DER, so that more people can participate and access these benefits, and then in addition, an overall reduction in energy costs. So we think that flexibility is the key, and it's the key driver for a new form of partnership between energy service providers and customers. So thank you. This brief introduction. Looking forward to further discussion.